question for you. Have you ever, I did this just a little while ago here, have you ever lost something, and you spend, maybe it's just like 10 or 15 seconds, but maybe it's like an hour, looking for this thing that you think you lost. So for me, this is really embarrassing. It happens a lot with my phone. So I was just downstairs in my house and was looking for my phone. I was like, where did I put my phone? Where did I put it? Thought it was on the kitchen table because I had just eaten breakfast. Wasn't there. Walk back upstairs, can't find it in my room, and my phone was in my hand. Yeah, maybe you've done that before. Hopefully you've done that before. If that's just me, that's embarrassing. It's fine. But I don't think it's just me, so I feel good about it. But right, we've all like lost something and then found it in like just the most obvious place, right? And we're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that, or I forgot that, or I didn't look there. This happened. We're going to talk specifically about Mary Magdalene, but the disciples, the apostles, right? They lost someone. They didn't lose something. They lost someone, much more important than a phone. And when they did, the crazy part is that they had the answer right in front of them for this thing that was lost, for this fear that they felt, for this anxiety. They had spent 3 years with Jesus. They had heard him say over and over and over again that he would rise from the dead, that he wouldn't be lost forever. Mary Magdalene especially was a great example of this because she followed him through everything, even to the cross, right? When all of the other disciples, especially the 12 apostles, except for John, all ran away, Mary Magdalene was there at the foot of the cross. And still she is mourning and weeping at the tomb, at the empty tomb. She thinks not only that Jesus is gone, that he's died, but that they've stolen his body and she doesn't know where he is. She spent the last 3 years, she gave everything to follow Jesus because he so radically changed her life. And suddenly he's gone. And not only is he gone, she can't find his body. We've all experienced this, right? Maybe not this exact thing, right? But the emotions that she's experiencing are real and we felt them. Anxiety over lost opportunity, fear over failure, all of these things, right? Especially right now, uncertainty, lack of clarity. We've all experienced those emotions, and Mary experienced them when she was at the tomb. She didn't know what to expect. But she forgot, right? For a moment, she forgot the peace that Jesus was offering. And we forget it too, right? Every time we're anxious, every time we're worried, every time we're afraid, we forget the peace that Jesus wants to offer us. During these times of anxiety, fear, loneliness, whatever it is, confusion, you name it, we forget God's goodness. We forget that God has a plan. Sometimes, right, we can forget this all the way to the point of discouragement and even despair. Despair is the opposite of hope, and we know that hope is one of the 3 theological virtues, right? Faith, hope, and love. And hope is one of the most important because hope is what points our hearts towards trusting in God. And we have to allow hope to strengthen us in these times of distress, in these times of suffering. Without hope, we cannot get through them. Now, this is a really important distinction, I think, that I'm going to make, and then I'm going to show you how Mary experienced this, okay? Hope does not just mean being optimistic. Hope does not mean thinking really positively. Because if that's what hope is, then it's still based on the earthly outcome. And we know that sometimes we hope for things, hope, right? We use the word hope, but really it's just a wish. We hope for things that don't happen, right? A lot of you guys, like, you're still pretty young, but I'm sure you've experienced that, where you hope for something. Maybe you hope that person is going to get better and they don't. Maybe you hope that you'll make new friends at your new school and it's really hard. Maybe you hope that that person will stop being mean to you or talking about you behind your back, or whatever. We hope for things that don't always happen. So what does that mean? Like, do we stop hoping? That's where hope, not even hope, false hope, optimism, right, is still based on the outcome that we can see. Ultimate hope is when we can look at suffering, we can look at trials, and we can say that no matter what happens here, God is bigger than these things. God is bigger. Doesn't mean that exactly what I want to happen in this situation is going to happen, right? I think we can all attest to that right now. Like, I don't think any of you want to be stuck in your houses all day, right? Like, we can hope that that can end, but true hope is saying that even if this continues, even if things get worse, and even if things get better, God is bigger than all of this. That's what the resurrection offers us, right? God is bigger than death, and if he's bigger than death, he's bigger than everything. Having hope in the resurrection, though, isn't always easy, and this is where we return to Mary Magdalene, right? So in chapter 20 of John's Gospel, it says, so she saw that the stone was removed from the tomb and that the tomb was empty. So she ran and went to Simon Peter and to the other disciple whom Jesus loved and told them, they've taken the Lord from the tomb and they don't know where they put him. She went and she told them, she told the apostles. They run, they see the empty tomb. John saw and believed, right? We talked about that a little bit last week. John saw and believed. Mary, she was still confused. She was still distressed, but she went back to the tomb, right? She didn't give up because she didn't really understand, but she knew, again, right? She trusted because she knew Jesus. She trusted that God is bigger than this. I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to go back and figure it out. So she went back, and verse 11 says, but Mary stayed outside the tomb weeping, and as she wept, she bent over into the tomb and saw two angels in white sitting there, one at the head and one at the feet, where the body of Jesus had been. And they said to her, woman, why are you weeping? She said to them, they have taken my Lord, and I don't know where they laid him. When she had said this, she turned around and saw Jesus there, but she did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to her, why are you weeping? Whom are you looking for? Why are you weeping? Whom are you looking for? She's weeping. She's suffering. She doesn't understand. She's distressed, she's worried, she's anxious. Jesus said to her, woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you looking for? She thought it was the gardener and said to him, sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him. She doesn't know it's Jesus. She doesn't recognize him in her grief and her despair. And we can know that the apostles didn't recognize him either right away, so he probably looked different. She doesn't recognize him in her grief. Jesus steps into that and makes himself known to her. Jesus said to her, Mary. She turned and said to him in Hebrew, Rabboni, which means teacher. He turned and said to her, Mary. He said her name. He called her name. And that's when she recognized him. He steps into her sorrow, into her grief, and makes himself known to her. It's when we don't turn to him in prayer in our times of suffering that we don't hear him call our name, like Mary heard him call her name. That's when we can't hear him working in the suffering. That's when we can't see him stepping into that and revealing himself to us. That's when we lose hope. When we don't live in hope, when we don't reach out to God and say, God, I know that you're bigger than this. I don't know what you're doing, but I'm here and I'm turning to you. Right? Mary turns to him and he says her name. That's when Jesus wants to say our name too. He wants to say our name. He wants to break through our sorrow, break through our suffering, and offer us hope, because he's bigger than all of it, because he conquered death. That's what the resurrection gives us. In the letter to the Hebrews, St. Paul says, let us hold unwaveringly to our confession that gives us hope. For he who made the promise is trustworthy. What is our confession? Our confession is Jesus resurrected. What we believe is that Jesus died on the cross and rose from the dead, so that when we die to ourselves, we can rise with him. That's our confession, and that's what gives us hope. For him who makes the promise is trustworthy. He is faithful. He keeps his promises. That might not always look like what we would wish for, what we would hope for, but really it's a wish, right, on earth. It doesn't mean that our life is going to look exactly like what we want it to. But what it does mean is that we can hope in the resurrection, that God is bigger than everything. That he wants to step into our suffering and call our name and make himself known to us. Continue to pray for that hope. Continue to pray for true hope, not positivity, not optimism, but hope in the resurrection. I'll be praying for you guys as well.